I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Alrighty, Clone Wars fans, we got the third episode of this Trace Ahsoka saga, while this being the 7th episode of Season 7 of the Clone Wars. I'm Ryan Nilsson. I'm joined by, she's an author, a rabid Star Wars fan, and she just got the Rise of Skywalker art book. Check this out. Rachel Goodman, how are you doing?
Hey, everyone. I figure this is a good introduction for me to, sit side by side with the Tross artwork book. And of course, I'm Rachel Goodman, and I'm really excited to be here.
Oh my God, that's so awesome. I need to get that book immediately. I'm rocking a Force Awakens shirt today.
I love it.
And I always get my trusty Ahsoka Tano novel handy. And we're talking about, again, Episode 7, Season 7, Clone Wars. Rachel, it's been a really great season. I'm digging this storyline with Ahsoka, Trace, and Rafa. And this episode is called Dangerous Debt? Dangerous Debt? Is that? I think that's correct.
I think you are correct. Let me double check really fast.
Yeah, it's Dangerous Debt. And this was, I think, one of the biggest character episodes we've gotten for all three of these characters, especially Rafa and Trace. Guys, we're going to be going through our overall thoughts of the episode. We're also going to be talking about who our MVP was from the episode later. We're also going to be going through the topics of what does that opening lesson mean of who you were does not have to define you. We're going to be talking about the female Pikes. We're going to be talking about those brutal torture scenes, as well as why Trace and Rafa hate the Jedi. We finally find out why. And we got some Mandalorians this episode. Holy cow. So much to talk about. And we kind of end where we started. Or did we? Rachel Goodman.
Or did we?
Overall thoughts.
So I love the emotional journey we went on with Rafa and Trace. The way that they have brought these two characters in that we did not know before and have made us care about them so quickly, I think is excellent. We're also seeing more with Ahsoka, and I'm always up for that. If the rest of the season had her in it, in every single episode, I would be happy with that. I do want to see her get back to not necessarily joining the Jedi. I don't need that to happen, but I would like to see their storylines intertwine a little bit more. Maybe we'll get that for the rest of the season. But overall, I did enjoy this strain in the fact that while Ahsoka can be a Jedi, she's with two people who obviously do not respect Jedis for the fact that they witnessed them handling something in from their perspective in a way that was not the greatest way to go about approaching a situation. And understandably so, they lost their parents. So I just think that's a really good, amount of tension to have between someone who is a Jedi who, isn't really a Jedi anymore, who's with people who do not like Jedi.
I think this is awesome. Yeah, I really like this episode. At first, I actually had mixed feelings, though. When it ended, I was like, oh, man, we just started where we began. And I had trouble wrestling with that. And the thought did cross my mind. I was like, was that a waste of time? And then I realized, no. We had so much character development in this episode. And I actually thought, rather than have them just get a little closer and they be in another prison or they get caught by someone else, there's something poetic about them ending up where they started.
Yeah.
But the relationship has changed. I feel like they all trust each other a little bit more in some ways not. And we know, I think, a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes with certain other characters. Let's get into just where this opens. They're all three of them are in this jail cell, and they take Rafa, which we got a teaser of earlier this week. And one of the more brutal Star Wars torture scenes I think we've ever seen, movies included. Rachel, thoughts on this torture scene?
Yeah, so normally, even in the movies, even in the sequels, when they're about to torture someone, they pan away.
Yeah.
It's very rare. There are moments, but it's very rare that we actually see them electrocuting someone. Actually, speaking of the books, in the Ahsoka novel, I think we got pretty close to seeing, one of her friends. Yeah.
We did.
We did see.
That one was pretty brutal.
Yeah, so I wonder if it's a theme with
I think
Ahsoka in
on
general.
camera, you're right, because like remember in Empire Strikes Back, they capture Han,
Mhm.
Chewie, and Leia, and they just show Han like kind of they lower him into
Well,
this electrocuting thing, and then we just hear the yell.
yeah.
We don't even
Well,
see it.
in A New Hope, when they go after Leia,
Great point.
they show the needle going toward her, and then they cut. So
Which
it's usually they'll hint at it, or even like when Hux dies, they point the gun and they they like you hear the gun going off and you see the body falling, but you don't actually like it feels like a very like even before even before Star Wars was part of Disney, before and after being part of Disney, that's just a typical Star Wars thing to do is to imply there's about to be some torture and then cut.
Which, I think there is something artistically to say about that. Like, on the one hand, when you leave it to a viewer's imagination, that
Yeah.
can sometimes be a little bit more disturbing. I think this is just what was great about this is in the Star Wars canon, we've seen it done that other way. So now to see the electrocution, that really left an impact on me because we're so used to how Star Wars usually does it.
Yeah.
And they do it for all three of them. Like, every time they go into the cell, just a bat to Ahsoka's face, like an electric bat or baton. And I think she took like 3 times. Like
Yeah.
they were not messing around here. And same thing with Trace. Although the way Trace got out of it was awesome.
Amazing.
Amazing.
I was like, first of all, I knew she wasn't gonna faint. I was like, okay, what is she playing at here? She goes like I loved that she took a typical cliche moment of a character being overwhelmed and fainting. She took it, twisted it, used it to her advantage, and then also the youngest one, the one who is not a Jedi, who has no powers, she's the one who outsmarts them and, basically kicks their butts.
Oh yeah, it's that. I think a big theme with these 3 characters, this whole storyline in general, is that people have really underestimated the youngest. People have underestimated Trace, and I think Ahsoka has been there before. When she was in the Jedi Order, the youngest, the Padawan, like no one thinks she's capable, and she ends up being the most capable. So I think that's very on theme and very interesting. But before Trace did break out of the prison and bring everyone else out, we got a really incredible monologue from Rafa about why they don't like the Jedi. We've known for a few episodes now they're not fond of Jedi, and Ahsoka has kept that a secret from them. This monologue was crazy. I mean, Rachel, as a writer, just give me your thoughts on this. Have we seen a monologue like this in this series?
I'm not sure about the series. I know in general, I mean, it does feel very Star Wars-esque to find out a character's backstory through a long monologue, like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like even in going back to New Hope again, Obi-Wan Kenobi, like a lot of the way that I feel like we were introduced to Star Wars, especially in the originals, is not necessarily seeing what happened, but being told what had happened. And so to me, it felt very on point with the brand and Star Wars in general, from a writer's perspective in terms of the storytelling narrative device. I would say that it is very powerful sometimes not to actually see the flashbacks and to just hear the character and the voice acting. The way that the speech was delivered, I think that says everything, because you can write the words, but if the actors bring a certain light and life to them, it isn't going to mean as much. And just the way that they have been interacting with each other, the characters, and the way like just watching Rafa's eyes and like hearing her tone and just hearing how deeply this cut her and affected her and how much she was still grieving over this. It brought so much depth to the performance.
They didn't. Great point. Not showing the flashback because it just kept us present with them, and to even double down on that, we know the scenario they're talking about because they're referencing the finale of season 1 of the Clone Wars when
the Hunt for Zero,
when the bounty hunter gang goes in to Coruscant and they free Zero the Hutt, and a great way to tie the whole series together, first off, and then secondly we hear her say, there was this green Jedi who
Yes.
they shot down one of these transports, and they said that she made a choice, and sorry, but the Force will always be with you, and walks away, which sounds a little like, I think this had Ahsoka kind of shook, because I thought this was going to be a story that, oh, there was a misunderstanding, like their hatred was placed in the wrong direction. Like, you hear that story and no, you understand why they don't like the Jedi. And
yeah. And we know that Ahsoka is not even in a place. I mean, she's obviously very upset by hearing all of this, but she's also in a place where first of all, she would have been very like, this is earlier. This is like what, the first season? Yeah, definitely the first season of Clone Wars, where we met this Zero the Hutt character and where we saw this. And so this is a long time ago. This isn't even something that, like this is, this is like beginning of Clone Wars to me.
Yeah.
And so, but for us to hear this goes all the way back to that point, it's just very, it's heartbreaking to watch Ahsoka's reaction, because she feels like, one, she was a part of this, but also we know that she had a falling out and she understands how the Jedi can be.
Yeah. And I think hearing the story when she says, when they said that the Jedi said not to worry, but the Force will always be with you, and now Ahsoka has seen what has become of these two. They're resorting to doing spice running. They're resorting to taking these jobs and really struggling in the underworld. The Force, you could say, has not always been with them, although you could say it is now with Ahsoka. But I think it's a really great character beat for these two, and I think Ahsoka is coming to terms with, she hasn't revealed that she once was a Jedi, because I think she's both proud of the fact that she was a Jedi, but she's also a little bit ashamed after hearing the story. And it's just a really awesome, complicated storyline, and I'm digging it.
Now, we had mentioned the Greenskins Jedi.
Right.
So I read a theory on sci-fi.com that says that they believe it's either Luminara Unduli or Barriss.
Oh, you think maybe Barriss?
Yeah. So just throwing that out there. I mean, so we didn't really, a lot of what she was talking about, we didn't actually see in the episode.
Right. She said, but she did mention Green Jedi. It was a Green Jedi. So, I mean, that could be Ayla Secura.
Yeah.
There are a few Green Jedi out there, but it could be.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, I don't think it's Yoda, but like.
No. Yeah.
It could have been any. I doubt it was Yoda, but.
But it would make sense, though, because. Not Yoda. It would make sense if it was Luminara or Barriss, because.
Kit
you
Fisto.
Could think.
There's like so many.
because someone who could go to Rafa and basically be so unempathetic about this death, it could be a Jedi who really wasn't a Jedi in a way.
I
like
love that
Yoda.
theory. All right, so do you think we're gonna find out?
I think we're gonna find out.
You do.
I think we're not done with Barriss yet either.
Oh, I think we're done with Barriss. That's just me. That's just me. I think we're done with her. I think her storyline is run its course. I mean, maybe unless she gets freed during Order 66, but like, I think the odds of Trace and Rafa maybe running into Barriss is different than them running into any like Luminara. But I love that theory. That's a great prediction. So we'll have you down for that one. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna assume that maybe it was Ayla Secura.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, she hasn't really been that involved in this series, and that might be a good way to add a little bit more to her character. All right, so torture scenes happen, they break free, and there's a great escape scene where, again, the two siblings are still bickering, and Ahsoka's like, tiebreaker, let's go! I love that. And then we get to see them just kind of roaming the streets on this planet. Looking for their ship. And then, the moment I freaked the hell out at, we get Mandalorians. Rachel Goodman, thoughts on the Mandalorians?
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. So I love anytime I love Mandalorians. I'm just gonna say that.
Oh, me too.
That's really all I have to say about this is that I was so excited for that moment, and I love. Okay, one, I love Mandalorians. Two, I love the idea of a bounty hunter, but bounty hunting in general. Like it just brings so much. It always fascinates me so much, especially when you get that situation with. I don't even think they named him the character who was looking for credits and he ended up basically like, oh, okay, well, they're not going to help me, I'm gonna turn them in and get more credits then. I just found it very, very typical and very I mean typical in a good way, but like very characteristic of Star Wars in terms of how they usually handle the bounty hunting business.
Yeah, and so we got 3 of them, and I think they're all female Mandalorians. What a cool... They're now kind of setting the table for what is to come, because we know this whole season is going to end in Mandalore. We know the beginning of this Ahsoka novel teases the end of this season saying Mandalore burned. Somehow,
Burned.
Ahsoka Tano is getting to Mandalore. Yeah. So we need to get there. I'm this got me just so excited, and I think they have to assume next week, maybe I'm getting too ahead of myself with predictions, but we have to assume they're going to have something to do with their escape. And I could not be more excited. Like the way they looked, like the cloaks, the little triangles on their mask, like just, oh my gosh. Now, do you think it was a little convenient that they're on the planet? Like, hopefully they'll explain why, but as cool as it was, I was like, they're just on this planet? Like, maybe it's because it's a bounty hunting hub.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I mean, honestly, so I feel like in a world like that, anytime you're dealing with the underworld, anytime you're dealing with, a planet that is, harboring criminals and also dealing with spice running, and you've got the Pikes, I was not surprised to see the Mandalorians, just because usually where crime is, they are close by, because that is the whole point, is that they are bounty hunting and they are looking for people based on a bounty. So I was not surprised. I don't think they need to explain it personally.
Are we assuming this was Bo-Katan, Satine's sister from Mandalore? The one that I believe there was the whole story arc when Obi-Wan was on Mandalore. I think this is like season 5, and tragically Satine perished, and I think Obi-Wan's escaping. He's like, "You're Satine's sister," and she's like, "Yeah." And she's a whole Mandalorian group. I think that this is Bo-Katan. She's got red hair. I think there's a scene in the trailer where she takes her helmet off, and we see like the red hair from behind.
Yeah.
So again, I think this is kind of setting the table for Bo-Katan and maybe 2 of her Mandalorian brethren to break them out. I cannot wait. It was just so great to see them.
I think it is too. I think that would make sense, and that would pull it back, and that would be something that I would want to see more of. So I'm hoping that that's true.
Yeah. All right. So then, like you said, the drunk gives them up. They once again are in this shootout, and there's this great twist. Like, one thing that's been so awesome again about this whole storyline is it's been very non-cliche. Every time the heroes would typically get away with something, or they'd get out, or anytime we've seen sort of like a bounty hunting trade-off in Star Wars, there's these beats, they get away with it, there's a consequence. But they have not gotten away with this. They've gotten locked up twice. And Ahsoka gets away first, and they get Trace and Rafa. And then the Pikes reveal, I knew having them out in the open would draw her in. Thoughts on this? Because I thought this was immensely clever.
So, one, I almost think that the Pikes might be onto Ahsoka, number one. But then two, as a Jedi, I think that they might be.
Speak on it.
Yeah. Also, I was not surprised that was the strategy to get her to come back and grab them, because we knew she was going to, especially after her what she had said to Rafa about helping because it's the right thing to do. But then also, once they grabbed her, you had spoke at the beginning about, well, they're in the same spot as they were in the beginning, but ... are they? And I think that it's like you said earlier, the character development is different. Also, we're seeing Ahsoka using more of her Jedi powers, and I think, like, without getting too much into predictions right now, I think that is going to be a major point of tension, because I think that we're getting to that breaking point where Ahsoka's about to start using her Jedi powers, even though she knows that Rafa especially would not want to be around the Jedi.
You mean
and,
in front? You mean in front of them? Because she's been using them. She used them quite a bit.
In
this
front,
episode.
yeah. In front. Sorry, that's what I meant. In front of them.
Got it.
I mean, and I also think, like, they are very close to catching on, like, with her jump. But
oh my God, the jump!
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
the jump was amazing.
But but I feel like we're at a place now where Ahsoka is feeling like, just seeing where she was at the beginning of the episode versus the end. I just feel like she's going to start just being herself in front of them, and that obviously it's going to cause problems. But that's why I don't think we're in the same place we were.
Yeah. Oh my God, that jump scene was so great, where the floor backs up and they need to. First of all, Rafa gets over, so it's just Trace and Ahsoka. And Trace, without even question, goes, "I'll take my chances," and jumps. And Ahsoka, just spur of the moment, has to help her get across. I thought that said so much about all three of those characters. One, that just Rafa and Trace they'll take leaps of faith. They're just going to go for it. Like, they don't think, they just do. Whereas Ahsoka, she does kind of use her powers in front of them. She's towing that line. I think you're right. They are onto her a little bit, but not entirely. I was kind of like, how do you guys not know? Like, she at one point she moves like the boxes. She opens the door. Like, there's a lot of stuff.
That's my frustration. Sometimes I feel like they do this in general in Star Wars, but sometimes characters who should be smarter and figure things out don't. And I feel like Rafa and Trace, they would have known. They're in a world where there are Jedi. They obviously have had interactions with them to a point where, I mean, obviously they're that unfortunate circumstance with their parents. So I feel like they would know. And
just only so many times you can go, how did you jump that far? Or how did you lift that thing? It's like, guys, connect the dots.
Well, and also, I know that they might not have seen this or realized it, but even when they met up with the Pikes, Ahsoka using, Jedi mind.
Yeah.
Even though Rafa, like, here's my problem. Rafa is a person who has to survive, and so she has to be very aware of things. To me, maybe not so much Trace, because she's a little bit younger and she's not the one running the missions, but Rafa, she should be very aware. She should have recognized that it wasn't being done on her, it was being done on the Pikes. So she should have recognized why the Pikes just randomly agreed to this, because Rafa should know better than anyone that people don't just back down and agree to things like that. So I'm not so much with Trace. Like, I could buy that she maybe doesn't see it, but Rafa should know.
Yo, but how about the ways she used the Force this episode? Like, one thing I don't think we've ever seen in Star Wars is during the shootout after the prison break, Ahsoka raises two Pikes to get shot. I was like, whoa, like, that is awesome.
Not the Jedi way. Yeah.
Yeah, not entirely the Jedi, but maybe. Like,
what? I would say arguably not the Jedi way, the way that they train, because they say that it isn't really, the goal isn't to actively kill someone, it's to defend yourself. But I guess if you take that like an act of defense, but maybe.
Because you're right. That was, I mean, it was awesome. I'm not going to lie. But we've never seen that. It was awesome. What a crazy awesome scene. This episode was filled with tons of awesome moments like that, and ultimately they get caught again, and they're back in the prison. Now, I was kind of curious why the Pikes didn't kind of. I know they planted Trace and Rafa out there to draw Ahsoka in, but when they actually said, "No, we'll just kill you two, get Ahsoka, and get the information out of her," I was kind of like, "Why don't you do that?" Yeah. I think that's actually a really smart play. And now that they have all three of them, do they actually need all three of them? I'm just saying, like, they're so smart that I I know the episode ended right when they got back in jail, so we haven't really seen what happens after. But I'm curious why they don't really follow their own fake plan.
Yeah. And I feel like though they can't. I mean, I feel like that they kind of. I mean,
They might.
sometimes in Clone Wars, I've noticed that the villains do tend to act very like sometimes I feel like it's a little bit dumbed down in the sense that they'll say, "Oh, well, we need to do this," and they'll tell us their plans, and then they don't for whatever reason. Well, obviously because we need the hero to live.
Yes, and I mean, this episode again. This season's been it's very non-cliche. I think the animation is beautiful, and the episodes are a little bit longer. We get a really great ending of this episode where Rafa admits they're back in prison. She's like begging for her life. Pikes are not hearing it whatsoever. Cell locks, and she goes, "Guys, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have never have taken this job. Like, it's finally the emotions have come to a head." And Ahsoka has the great line of, "We live and we learn," which this is why you and I love her so much. Like, she is just one of the best characters in this entire canon because I think she has the knowledge of a Jedi, but she also knows the world isn't black and white. Like, she's cultured in a way.
Yeah.
Like, Jedi is a culture, but they're almost blocked off to a lot of other different ways of thinking. And I think this is just what makes Ahsoka such an incredible character. What did you think of this ending?
Well, okay, my thing with Ahsoka is she left the Jedi Order for a reason. And I feel like going along with what you said, she is more of, I don't want to say human because, I feel like that isn't the right way to say this, but she's more of she is able to understand better what the average person might be feeling, especially with the Jedi and what the Jedi stand for and how there could be another side to it. And I think that just makes her different than a Jedi who is very stuck and set in their ways, who only sees what the Jedi are teaching.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. All right, so it was a really solid episode. Cannot wait for next week. Let's just get into our special segment real quick. MVP. Who do you think was the MVP of this episode? Rachel Goodman.
Ahsoka, for sure. Using the Force behind the scenes and not getting caught and just being there for her friends and not just, disappearing when she could.
It's a really good MVP. Yeah, I mean, I think you could really say Ahsoka for all three of these episodes. I think Ahsoka might be my MVP as well. Again, it's just furthering what an incredible character. Like, Star Wars is in such a great place with this character, which I just can't say for most of the other characters right now. But to the masses that are aware of who this person is, who this character is, everyone's loving her. And I feel like the past 2-3 weeks have all been Ahsoka. From the Rosario Dawson casting for Mandalorian Season 2, Dave Filoni changed his Twitter banner to Ahsoka and Rex, and it's like an older Rex. And I think just the novel, like, we already know basically her arc, but just seeing stuff play out, seeing her gain knowledge, gain culture, gain understanding of other people, just enhances the feelings we already felt about this character. And I think it's episodes like this that just really make me want to embrace this character even more and more. I think Ahsoka Tano is our MVP. Let's get into some predictions for next week. This will be episode 8 of this season. What are your thoughts, Rachel Goodman?
I really want to get back to me, Anakin, the main storyline with Anakin, Obi-Wan. Like, we already know a lot about what went on with the war. So what I really want at this point is to see more of the character development with them, and to fill in some of the missing pieces from Anakin to Vader. And I know I've been saying that, but I just want to say it again because that's really what I'm hoping that we get. I know that you had mentioned that you think it would be really cool if Anakin and Ahsoka don't really directly talk. I'm still holding out and hoping that they do, and that they are able to have one more conversation before they never see each other again until he's Vader.
So I'm loving the whole season. So here, let's talk our predictions for, I guess, the rest of the season and next week.
Yeah.
So specifically for next week, for me, I'm thinking the Mandalorians are going to help her get out, and then they're going to inform her of issues that are happening on Mandalore. And I mean, at this point, here's what we know. We know Darth Maul is still in command of Mandalore. Like, he has got the throne. Now, we don't know the full status, because I think the last thing we saw was the Emperor kind of like spanking him, teaching him a lesson. But we know that that's the case. And we know that this is Satine's sister wanting to regain control. And we also know that Ahsoka ends up there. So I think the Mandalorians are going to rescue her, Trace and Rafa. They're going to inform Ahsoka. And I think they're going to reveal Ahsoka, expose her as a Jedi to Rafa and Trace, and inform her of the Mandalorian. So I think there might be a tragic twist that even after all they've been through, Rafa and Trace walk away from Ahsoka, like she walked away from the Jedi Order. That is my prediction for next week.
And just going off of that, we know that in Ahsoka the novel, we don't see Trace or Rafa.
Yeah.
So I would think that you're probably right.
Which could be something tragic. Who
knows? It could be.
As for the whole season, I'm loving what you're saying. I do want to get back to those characters. I want to see Obi-Wan. I want to see Anakin. I just think, we talked about last week how Dave Filoni added in that scene with Padme. Originally, Padme wasn't really in the season at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And again, that's from the episodes that were already written, already made 3-4 years ago, or 5 years ago. So a lot could have changed. Like they've added a ton of stuff. There were a bunch of storylines they have cut out. They've trimmed the fat and they've kept the essentials. And I think they've added a bunch of stuff in. So for all we know, they could add more scenes. But I don't think we're going to get any more Padme. I also think that what we do get of Anakin, they've been so careful with, because they don't want to. I really do think they have a respect for Revenge of the Sith and the prequel movies. I just don't think they want to really retcon anything all too much.
Yeah.
I want to get back to Rex. I want to get back to that storyline and just seeing. I want to get to Mandalore, essentially. Do you think there's going to be any other familiar faces throughout the rest of the season?
I mean, I would hope that we would see more familiar faces, but I don't know, because we only have 4 more episodes.
Yeah.
So it kind of, I guess 5, right? If we're counting 8.
It's just 5. You're right. If we have 5.
Yeah. So, I don't know how much more they can do really with 5 more episodes.
We'll have to see. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. This was I love doing this after show with you. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Rach Goodman, or on my author Instagram account at Rachel Radner Author.
She also has an awesome after show for Outlander, so check that out. And she's on a ton of other shows here. You guys can find me at Ryan Nilsson on Twitter, at Ryan Nilsson _ on Instagram, and Star Wars news every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We got to get Rachel on that soon. This was our Clone Wars after show. Please comment below. What did you think? Give us a rating on iTunes. We'll shout you out on air. And may the Force be with you. Please wash your hands, be safe, and have an amazing rest of your day.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.